gauge the time, and hang on the horn. But it wasn't always necessary. Sometimes it was just bragging. And then again, not many people had his job. Normally, the Silver Meteor carried 20 cars and traveled between 74 and 90 miles per hour, meaning she would need all of 5 miles to stop. After she left Thalman, she turned south, hugged the Georgia coastline, streak into Florida, and top 100 miles per hour on the straits between Sebring and West Palm Beach. She was a symphony of sound and a king's banquet of smell, feel, and otherworldly power. Her domed observation car would round the corner and sparkle in the distance like the northern star. A minute later, the caboose would reach and clear the corner, only to disappear once again behind her nose. Barreling down the straight, the bone-jarring horn would sound every quarter-mile and then constantly in the last quarter. As she neared the crossing, she sent an odd combination of sonar pings, the banging of the draft gear between the cars, the thundering engines, bells ringing, horn blowing, sparks flying in her wake. She was a panoramic display of clickety-clack glory, the sum of which reached out ahead of the train only to sneak around and rise up through your spine like a jackhammer exiting the earth. And when she had disappeared, her single red light tailing off into the distance, she left you with that same lover's touch, the lingering remnant and sweet aroma of spent diesel, hot oil, and creosote. The driver of the Impala was female. Skinny fingers, thin skin, white knuckles, a half-empty brown bag bottle pressed between her high-mileage thighs. Sunglasses dwarfed her face, covering the hollow sockets, and a purple shawl covered her ears and hair. She was screaming at someone on the other side of the spiderweb. The boy next to her might have been 8, but his meals had been sporadic and less than nutritious. He looked like an alley cat in a ghost town. He wore only cut-off jeans, fraying across his thighs like dandelion wisps. A safety pin held together the right hinge of his glasses, and both lenses were grooved with deep scratches. The glasses had been given to him by one of the men who was not his dad. They had been at Walmart walking past the optometrist. The kid tugged on the man's leg, looked at the doctor's door, and then at the man. The man frowned and walked over to the bin where folks throw their old glasses. He looked over his shoulder, and then stuck his arms into the mouth of the mailbox, pulling out the first pair his hand touched. He turned them over in his hands, and then slammed them on the kid's face. "There, better?" The kid looked at the scars on the man's hand, the grease under his fingernails, and nodded. That had been 2 years ago. The kid looked straight ahead, clutching a spiral-bound notebook and pen. His skin was white and covered in scars. Some new, some old, all painful. Some were circular, about the size of the head of a pencil, while others were about an inch in length and maybe half an inch wide. On his back, in the middle of his right shoulder blade, the most recent wound oozed. The woman turned toward the kid, pointed an uncertain finger in his face, and continued screaming. In the background, a hollow, distant horn sounded. The kid didn't flinch. He'd quit flinching a while ago. She grabbed the brown bag, sucked hard on the courage, and turned her spit-filled tirade back at the windshield. In the distance, the train's headlamp appeared. She pounded the steering wheel, sucked hard again, and then backhanded the kid, rocking his head off the right door. He picked his glasses off the floorboard, but never let go of the notebook. Her fingers tapped the seat next to her while she caught her breath. She lit a cigarette, breathed deeply, and then exhaled out the window. He watched the glow out of the corner of his eye. 2 more quick puffs, 1 more swig, and then she ran her fingers through his hair. It had been cropped short, shorn like a sheep, and the back of his head looked like a soccer ball where patches were missing. A half-mile away, the train passed a white signal post and sounded again. She finished off the bottle, stamped out the cigarette, and then placed her hand on his shoulder. Her finger touched a scabbing scar, causing her brow to wrinkle and sending tears cascading down a face stretched taut across her skull. The temperature hovered in the 80s, but the kid shivered beneath a blanket of sweat and a trickle of pus, as if flipping a switch.